When I think back on my childhood, the thing that stayed with me the most, it wasn't something just like dramatic. It was just learning that very early that my presence could feel like an interruption, like I was a burden. And it took me years to realize that what I experienced actually had a name. Back then, we didn't have, I didn't have access to TikTok and YouTube videos, explaining the mother and daughter relationship and all the dynamics that happen. So it really took me years to realize what it was I actually experienced. And it really even took me longer to see how it shaped the way I took up space, especially as a creative woman, shaping the way I would show up in the world. And before we go further, let me introduce myself. My name is Shantae. I'm the founder of Creatives Unboxed, where our mission is to help creatives win where other people quit. And right now, we're focusing on the silent mother wound. And the reason why I just believe this is an important topic, especially for creatives, is because I'm seeing a pattern with the consulting work that I do, just walking around. I'm in the music community as well. So I interact with a lot of uh, musicians, artists, singers, songwriters. And I notice a pattern when I really get to like hear people's stories and just see how they show up and hearing some of the issues that they're going through. And I found a pattern that it really goes back to how we were raised, right? And that's the thing, like some of the silent mother wounds that we have, they don't come from what happened, but they come from what never happened. Right. And like I said, my house wasn't full of drama where like my mom was beating on me or anything like that. But it's more of just the emotional disengagement that really can mess your mental up, right? As you go into adulthood. And, you know, and it's not like and that's the thing, we all had different experiences. So like, some people had, my mother was very dismissive. Some people had abusive mothers. Some people had distracted mothers. um we all have different experience, but it's the same pattern, right? So as we really look into the silent mother wound, it really forms through emotional absence. And that's the reason why I call it the silent mother wound. We hear a lot of talk about the mother wound, but I call it the silent because it if you look from the outside, a lot of us look like we had the perfect homes, like the bills were paid, we had a place to stay, we made it to school. Some of us went on to go on to college. Some of us are very talented. And it really looks like everything was okay. Like there was no big drama, no big defining event, but it was just the little things that happened every day that just added up. And that was the emotional absence. And it even in stable households, emotional absence. When I talk about emotional absence, I'm talking about just the disconnect between mother and daughter. It's where the mother is in the home, but she's not there. She's just totally disengaged. No telling what, that mother went through and, with her mother, her life experience. But it's like they're physically there, but emotionally unavailable. Like they're not curious about who their daughter is. They're not curious to, see who their daughter could become. There's no effort to really prepare the child for the world. It's just kind of the mother just kind of does their role. And when you turn 18 or when you move out, it's kind of like, well, I done my part, figure it out. But in the home, when you were growing up with them, it was just no deposit. It was kind of like you had a roommate, You know how you had them roommates that there were some roommates we just didn't talk. Like I say hi and bye. It was peaceful. I wash my dishes. I go to my room. And there was no real connection. It was just kind of where it, I don't want to say like an obligation, but it was just kind of like, we're here. I'm going to do the bare minimum. You'll be okay, but I'm not giving you anything else. And this is why this is an issue. It's because as a child, you come into this world knowing nothing. So everything you learn, you're learning from your closest caretaker. You're learning your identity by how they respond to you, by how they affirm you or don't affirm you, right? So it's those years are very crucial in your mental development and how you see yourself. And this is just talking about emotional absence from your mother. This is not even talking about all the other traumas that could come with that, right? There are some mothers, some daughters who they had to go through their mothers not believing them when they spoke up about something that happened to them, and their mother taking the side of the abuser, and things like that. So it's a lot of issues that come from the silent mother wound. But as we're talking about this though, the silent mother wound again forms through emotional absence. It's just the parent, it's their body is there, but their mind and spirit is somewhere else. And like I said, it looks like nothing wrong. It looks like there's nothing wrong, but there is a lot missing, right? And as a child, especially me as a child, I just kind of learned to adapt in that environment. Like I had music, and I thank God for music in my life. I started music kind of early. My first instrument was a trumpet. I started that at 9 years old. And then I started playing piano at 12 years old. And it was just something about music. And I'm going to always talk about music as a creative. I do music. I'm a songwriter and artist. And the thing about music was that it was a safe place for me. Like it gave me what I wanted from my mom. And if you're a musician, you totally get what I mean. It's like when you connect with your instrument, it's such a beautiful experience. And you just sit there, and especially when I was playing, like I had access to piano rooms and I could just play. It was therapy. It really was. And it kind of distracted me a lot from what was really happening in my home. And I noticed with a lot of creatives, like when you're a child, you really don't know what the hell is going on. You're just really adapting, right? So, when your mother was absent, it taught you a lot of things without words. So it taught you, when your mom, if you came to your mom with good news and she was very dismissive and she felt like you were just being silly and she would dismiss you. Every time you do that, what is that doing? What is that teaching you as a child? It's teaching you, like if you have anything exciting to share, don't share it because it's just going to make your mom mad, right? So it conditions you to be quieter, to not take up space, to not shine as much, because when you shine, your mother doesn't even acknowledge like you doing good in school or acknowledge that you're even talented, that you have a gift. And that's the thing, parents can see when you have a gift. And when your parents don't even invest in your gift or acknowledge your gift, how do I put this? When your parents don't invest in your gift, it can be it can kind of condition you to downplay yourself and how talented you really are and the genius that you really are. And I can tell, like with some of the women that I've talked to, I can just tell how smart they are and how creative they are. And I'm like, oh my God, your mom missed out on all of this to develop this and push. Because this is what I believe. I believe as a mother, you're supposed to be so in tune with your child. You see where their gifts are, you see where their talents are, and you push them in that. And you teach them, you use that to teach them discipline, to grow what was given to them. And the one thing about me, I'm grateful, is that I had the internal drive to build discipline. And I used, and this is what a lot of creatives do. We use our gifts as a coping mechanism too. So that kind of drove me, it worked out for my good. It that not having my mother present, it really drove me to want to get even better as a musician and really explore music, because it was just an emotional connection that I had with music. So when your mother is not just emotionally invested in you, it just teaches you to take up less space. And that's the thing about children. You can mold a child so easily. And those early years are so crucial. And children shrink not because they're told to, but because it keeps them safe. And I'm really going to take my time with this, because the whole point of this video is for you to see and become aware of how the silent mother wound is impacting you today as a creative woman. If you're listening, if you made it this far in the video, we're 11 minutes in, you're identifying with something that I'm talking about. And the thing about being a creative and, in your childhood, how can I put this? So, you become more sensitive, because you're especially with a parent, because you always had to learn to read your parent. You have to see, oh, is she in a good mood today? Did I do something wrong? Am I in trouble? Is she irritated with me? Is she happy today? Is she in a good mood today? Should I even tell her about what's going on in my life? Will she receive, can I communicate with her? And that's the thing too. When the emotional connection is not there, that means the communication is not there. Right? There is no communication. I felt like with my mom, I never knew who she was. And that's because she never talked to me about her upbringing, her past. She never told me stories. Like, I can't even recall any stories about her life. Like, I literally felt like we were roommates. And I felt like I raised myself. And I talk more in the book. I kind of talk about some of the experiences I've had with, my mother competing with me, and, wondering if my mom hated me. She was just, very dismissive with me and just emotionally not present. And this really caused me to up my creativity and really go into my imagination. And I created my own little world, to where I kind of protected myself from my mom, even though like she was dismissive, and it's not like, again, I'm not trying to tear my mom down, but I'm just showing like, this is what a lot of people deal with. And, there were times where my mom would body shame me. She would talk about the way I eat. She was kind of my first bully in a way. And, but how I internalized that, I really leaned into achievement and my imagination. And I just got really smart. I got scholarships. I've gotten awards. I have so many certificates. Like, I have so many achievements. And we're going to talk about that too, how, the silent mother wound can turn you into an overachiever. And that can be good and bad, right? And I learned, I just learned that I kind of had to lean into myself, because what I was needing, I wasn't going to get from my mom. And, so we talk about, how does this show up in adulthood? So you'll notice, if your mom didn't pour into you emotionally, you will notice that look at how you show up in relationships. Like, you probably put up with the bare minimum. You probably deal with people who have poor communication with you. You probably feel uncomfortable taking up space. You probably apologize for everything. You're probably really super nice and you try to overcompensate and you try to like really show up for people and like show people how loyal you are. And you try to earn people's love and their validation. And you really burn yourself out trying to prove to people that you're a good person and that you're loyal and that you're loving. And you're not getting that back. You're not getting that back. And I know firsthand, like the way I would show up for people is crazy. Like when I look back, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? These are losers. Why am I aligning myself with losers trying to prove something to them? And but it's this thing because as a child, when your mother's not emotionally there and you're like, well, maybe if I achieve something, she'll notice me and she'll be proud of me. And then you carry that into your relationships. Like, well, maybe if I just cook for him and maybe if I just show up for her and let her stay with me because she's having a hard time, she'll see that I'm loyal. And we carry that mindset and it really works against us because we're basically diminishing ourselves. And it's that mindset of like, oh, I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy to be loved. Let me just try to use all my resources just to maybe get something. And that tires you out. And it's a distraction because you're too busy trying to overextend yourself for people, institutions, organizations, and you neglect yourself. And this all I'm telling you, it comes from the silent mother wound. It really does. And I'm going to stop the video right here because I do want to take my time with this because it's so important that you really the awareness part is what's important, because once you're aware, you can really approach this from a position of power and you can move towards healing. And no, this is not about, some of you are no contact with your mothers. This is not about telling you you need to reach out to your mother and forgive, and or you need to talk to your mom, or you need to cut your mom off. And this is not what this is about. It's just really recognizing how the body really does keep score of what you've been through. And once you are aware, that's where we can start moving towards that self-leadership and, reestablishing your foundation and your boundaries and becoming the woman of your dreams, becoming the woman. I know in your head, you see the woman that you could